Are you ready to dive into one of the most eerie and controversial events in history? In 1908, a cosmic catastrophe struck the remote forests of Siberia. It came to be known as the Tunguska Event. Scientists believe that on June 30th, a mysterious explosion occurred above the region, leveling trees over an area of 770 square miles, leaving no impact crater. But what caused such devastation? Some suggest that it was a meteor or a comet that collided with Earth's atmosphere, while others propose a more exotic explanation, such as a black hole or even an alien spacecraft. But what if the truth is even more sinister than we could have ever imagined? One of the most controversial theories is that Nikola Tesla had a part in this with his early experiments and invention known as the death ray. So sit back, grab a snack. Let's dive into the Tunguska Event of 1908, the day the sky fell to Earth. On the fateful morning of June 30th, 1908, around 7:17 local time, a peculiar event unfolded in the remote wilderness northwest of Lake Baikal. According to accounts, Evenki natives and Russian settlers were startled by an extraordinary sight. A bluish light, eerily bright, painted the sky, leaving a thin trail in its wake. As it descended towards the horizon, a sudden flash illuminated the surroundings, giving birth to a billowing cloud. Following this spectacle, a towering pillar of fire emerged, casting a haunting red glow upon the land. Strangely, the fiery pillar soon split in two, gradually fading into darkness. Mere moments later, an echoing sound akin to distant artillery fire reverberated through the air. Witnesses closer to the epicenter reported that the source of this sound seemed to shift, moving from the east to the north. This auditory disturbance was accompanied by a powerful shockwave, so intense that it sent people tumbling and shattered windows hundreds of kilometers away. What makes this event truly mind-boggling is its resemblance to a nuclear explosion. Yet remarkably, it left no human casualties or significant tragedies in its wake as if it was planned. The impact of this astonishing occurrence reached far beyond the Siberian wilderness. Seismic stations across Eurasia registered the explosion, while its reverberations echoed across continents. Airwaves from the blast rippled across vast distances, reaching as far as Germany, Denmark, Croatia, and the United Kingdom. The shockwave even made its presence known in places as distant as Batavia in the Dutch East Indies and Washington, D.C. The force of the shockwave in certain areas equaled the intensity of an earthquake measuring 5.0 on the Richter magnitude scale, leaving a profound mark on the lands it touched. In the aftermath of this extraordinary event, a perplexing absence loomed large. There existed no crater, no customary indentation on the Earth's surface that typically followed such cataclysmic impacts. This puzzling void challenged the very foundations of our understanding, defying the logic that had guided our interpretation of terrestrial occurrences. It was almost as if the cosmos itself had choreographed this breathtaking display, purposefully erasing any conventional signs of devastation. Now, if anyone is familiar with the details of the events in Japan in August 1945, might recognize this sequence as being extremely similar to the events close to ground zero of the nuclear explosions above Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Except, of course, the Tunguska Event, named after the nearby river, took place several decades earlier. This cosmic puzzle has given rise to various theories surrounding the Tunguska Event. The most widely accepted theory is that a large meteoroid or comet entered Earth's atmosphere and exploded before reaching the ground and causing no impact crater. Scientists and researchers studying the Tunguska Event, including Russian scientist Leonid Kulik, have proposed the meteoroid or comet impact theory based on the absence of a crater and the widespread tree damage. Another controversial theory scientists have proposed is the existence of a mini black hole or a chunk of strange matter that collided with Earth, causing the explosion. However, this theory is highly speculative and not widely supported within the scientific community. A more controversial theory suggests that the Tunguska Event was caused by an extraterrestrial spacecraft crashing or deliberately exploding in the Earth's atmosphere. Another theory proposed by some researchers suggests that Nikola Tesla, a renowned inventor and scientist, was experimenting with wireless energy transmission and accidentally caused the Tunguska explosion. Among his many pursuits was a fascination with wireless energy transmission, a concept that led him to construct the towering Wardenclyffe Tower in New York in 1901. While initially aimed at telegraphy, Tesla harbored grander ambitions. envisioning the transmission of electricity through the air. By 1906, however, financial woes loomed large. His chief supporter, J.P. Morgan, withdrew funding, plunging Tesla into desperation. It was during this turbulent period that Tesla's ideas took a turn towards the extraordinary. He became convinced that his wireless electricity transmitter could be weaponized. He speculated that the device could generate an electrical wave of such intensity that it could annihilate a target hundreds of miles away. It was against this backdrop of ambition and intrigue that the Tunguska Event occurred in 1908. Tesla's involvement in this cosmic mystery was uncovered in cryptic statements. The story goes that Robert Peary, an American explorer, was undertaking an expedition to the North Pole around the time of the Tunguska Event. Tesla contacted him before the trip and asked him to report back on anything unusual he encountered. Some theorists propose that Tesla, in a bid to showcase his device's power, attempted a spectacular demonstration. Advocates of this theory suggest that Tesla's attempt to fire an energy bolt towards Ellesmere went awry, overshooting its mark and causing the Tunguska explosion. Several factors cast doubt on the widely accepted meteorite theory. Eyewitness accounts described prolonged and unusual lights in the sky, a phenomenon inconsistent with typical meteorite behavior. Reports of the night turning into day were widespread, even reaching England, leaving many baffled. Tesla's claims about Wardenclyffe's capability to illuminate vast areas echoed these strange occurrences. Additionally, eyewitnesses recounted the ground shaking before the explosion, a detail aligning with Tesla's assertion that his device could shake the very Earth. The absence of a blast crater or meteorite remnants further fueled skepticism. If Tesla's directed energy beam theory holds true, it would explain the lack of physical traces. As the event took place, eyewitnesses found themselves thrust into a surreal nightmare. Among them was S. Semenov, whose harrowing account, captured during Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik's 1930 expedition, paints a vivid picture of the Tunguska Event. At breakfast time, I was sitting by the house at Vanavara Trading Post, approximately 65 kilometers 40 miles south of the explosion. Facing north, I suddenly saw that directly to the north, over Onkul's Tunguska Road, the sky split in two, and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. The split in the sky grew larger, and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. From the northern side, where the fire was, came strong heat. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down, but then the sky shut closed, and a strong thump sounded, and I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment, but then my wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came, as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook, and when I was on the ground, I pressed my head down, fearing rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses, like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later, we saw that many windows were shattered, and in the barn, a part of the iron lock snapped. Testimony of Chuchan of Shanyagir tribe, as recorded by I.M. Suslov in 1926.
We had a hut by the river with my brother Chakaran. We were sleeping. Suddenly we both woke up at the same time. Somebody shoved us. We heard whistling and felt strong wind. Chakaran said, "Can you hear all those birds flying overhead?" We were both in the hut, couldn't see what was going on outside. Suddenly I got shoved again, this time so hard I fell into the fire. I got scared. Chakaran got scared too. We started crying out for father, mother, brother, but no one answered. There was noise beyond the hut. We could hear trees falling down. Chakaran and I got out of our sleeping bags and wanted to run out, but then the thunder struck. This was the first thunder. The earth began to move and rock. The wind hit our hut and knocked it over. My body was pushed down by sticks, but my head was in the clear. Then I saw a wonder. Trees were falling. The branches were on fire. It became mighty bright. How can I say this? As if there was a second sun, my eyes were hurting. I even closed them. It was like what the Russians call lightning, and immediately there was a loud thunderclap. This was the second thunder. The morning was sunny. There were no clouds. Our sun was shining brightly as usual, and suddenly there came a second one. Chakaran and I had some difficulty getting out from under the remains of our hut. Then we saw that above, but in a different place, there was another flash and loud thunder came. This was the third thunderstrike. Wind came again, knocked us off our feet, struck the fallen trees. We looked at the fallen trees, watched the treetops get snapped off, watched the fires. Suddenly Chakaran yelled, "Look up," and pointed with his hand. I looked there and saw another flash, and it made another thunder, but the noise was less than before. This was the fourth strike, like normal thunder. Now I remember well, there was also one more thunderstrike, but it was small and somewhere far away, where the sun goes to sleep.
While the spectacular event certainly garnered its share of media coverage, particularly by Russian newspapers, it would be more than a decade before the first scientific expedition succeeded in analyzing the blast site. Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik led a team to the Podkamenaya Tunguska River basin in 1921. He was conducting a survey for the Soviet Academy of Sciences and heard the many local accounts of the explosion. Believing it had been caused by a giant meteorite, he convinced the Soviet government to fund an expedition to the region to possibly salvage any meteoric iron. But the harsh conditions of the Siberian wilderness foiled his team's efforts to reach the blast area. Kulik's team made the arduous journey for the second time to Tunguska in 1927, hiring local Evenki hunters to guide them to the impact site. He was surprised upon arrival to see that there was no impact crater. However, a 5-mile swath of trees was scorched, all their branches blown off, yet still standing upright. A similar phenomenon occurred in Hiroshima, Japan, after the detonation of a nuclear bomb in 1945, and scientists have estimated the Tunguska event released the energy equivalent of about 185 such bombs. Further away, trees had fallen away from the center of the blast in a radial pattern. Over 3 successive expeditions, Kulik noted several small pothole bogs that he assumed were meteorite craters, but when he finally drained one of the bogs, an old stump at the bottom proved it could not be such a crater. His team also took several aerial photographs. Although the negatives were destroyed in 1975, part of a Soviet initiative to get rid of hazardous nitrate film, the prints were carefully preserved for future study. The local natives attributed the blast to Agda, the god of thunder, to punish the Evenki tribe for their internal disputes. They proclaimed the blast site a sacred space and guarded it zealously from outsiders. One reason it took nearly 2 decades before the first scientific expeditions arrived. Scientists have narrowed the likely candidates down to 2 possibilities over the ensuing decades. Some scientists concluded the object that exploded in the atmosphere was a comet, possibly the comet Encke. This notion was first proposed in 1930 by British astronomer F.J.W. Whipple, a hypothesis supported in part by the glowing skies observed after the blast. The dust and particles that caused the glow could have been debris from the disintegrated comet's tail. A 2010 expedition studied the Tunguska site using ground-penetrating radar and found evidence that a huge piece of ice formed the Suslov crater, in keeping with the comet hypothesis. Critics of this idea argue that a comet traveling through the atmosphere at such a shallow trajectory would have disintegrated well before it entered the lower atmosphere. Comet proponents have countered that it could have been an extinct comet, with a stony mantle that enabled it to remain intact until it reached the lower atmosphere. Today, there is strong consensus that the body causing the Tunguska event was most likely an asteroid-like object, a theory bolstered in 2001 by a study showing an 83% probability, based on orbital modeling of the atmospheric trajectories of the Tunguska object, that the object came from the asteroid belt and followed an asteroid-like trajectory. A 2013 analysis of fragments taken from the site, along with studies of resin from trees in the impact area, showing high levels of materials common to rocky asteroids, also supported the hypothesis that the object was an iron meteorite. As for the lack of a crater, the asteroid probably disintegrated from huge increases in pressure and temperature as it passed through the atmosphere, so much so that no significant remnants of the body survived. Perhaps the best evidence for the asteroid hypothesis comes from a similar but smaller explosion on February 15, 2013, in the Ural district of Russia, with a shockwave powerful enough to also shatter windows. Scientists determined that event was caused by an asteroid spanning 17 to 20 meters in diameter, with a mass of about 11,000 tons. In the decades that followed, most scientists have agreed on 2 most likely explanations for what had occurred at Tunguska. It is quite clear that an object from outer space entered the atmosphere over central Siberia. Because no crater was ever found on the ground, and no meteorite either, it is thought that the object disintegrated, exploded, before reaching the surface. The blast area and other effects point to that conclusion. So, are you still left wondering about the mysteries that shroud the Tunguska event? Throughout my research into this, even I was baffled by a lot of thoughts. One being when I look around at what is going on in the world, from random explosions to wildfires that can't be explained. It just makes me wonder, could this be technology that we have no idea about? What if that technology existed back then? This case makes me think about so much. I want to know what you really think happened that day. Maybe Nikola Tesla did have a part to play in this, who knows? One thing for sure is that in this video, we witnessed the bizarre events of that fateful morning in 1908 when the sky fell to Earth, leaving a haunting trail of destruction across the Siberian wilderness. But at the end of the day, it still leaves us with more questions than answers. So my friends, As we come to an end, I just want to say thank you for your time today watching this video. I also encourage you to subscribe to my channel for more captivating content and comment something you would like me to dive deep into. I do everything by myself on this channel. It is a one-man show, so your support means so much to me. By subscribing, you become a vital part of this community. So until next time, like I say, continue to explore the unknown and remember to always seek the truth.